Hey everybody, I'm David. Welcome to the AI Guide on YouTube, where we make AI human. What does that mean? It means that we focus on the human impact of AI and the associated exponential technologies like robotics, self-driving, 3D printing, and more. Because the human impact in the end is what matters. And we've got a couple of great episodes for you this week, both of which will have to do with human impact. Before we get into our first story, which is very key to what's happening in the world right now, here in the US at least, and the rest of the world, I think, click the links below. Get my book on Amazon, The Beginner's Guide to AI, A Short History of AI and Current Impact on 10 Different Industries. It's a short read, only about 2 hours for the whole book. You're going to learn a lot, and it's going to help prepare you for a highly automated future. The other resource, the second link, is free resources to help you learn more about AI than we can do in these short videos, because you will have to use AI at work almost immediately now. If you want to know more about that, see the video from Sunday of last week. So let's get into it. So we all know that the U.S. Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates for a while now, and they're continuing to do that. In fact, they just raised interest rates this past week. And the reason they are doing that is to bring down the rate of inflation. So how do they make these decisions? You're going to know what I'm about to say, given the nature of this channel. AI is making a big impact now on the Fed's decision making. And I'm going to give you a clear example of that. So I was on the Federal Reserve website looking for their policy statement when they just raised interest rates. And I just happened to see a very interesting research article in the Fed Notes that's titled Measurement and Effects of Supply Chain Bottlenecks Using Natural Language Processing, which you guys here on the AI Guide know means AI, NLP. So here we go. When firms experience shortages, shipping delays, and shutdowns as occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic, they may be unable to produce, transport, and sell their products. This can lead to demand and supply mismatches, potentially resulting in price increases and requiring firms to make tough choices regarding their supply chain management or scaling down operations. Quantifying supply chain bottlenecks can be challenging due to the complexity of a firm's input-output network. So I'll give you a great example of that. At my last company, which was a manufacturing company, we had probably 300 active suppliers that we bought materials from, and another 300 active customers that we sold finished products to. That's one smaller firm in a vast U.S. economy. So the amount of data that is gotten from the Department of Commerce through their surveys that the Fed then analyzes through its research group, like these folks, is massive. It is so big now, it is impossible for human beings to do this task. New research in economics emphasizes the value of using narratives and anecdotes in forecasting major economic events. Why is that? It's because a lot of what happens in the economy is emotionally driven, not factually driven. That's why narratives and anecdotes are helpful in forecasting the economy. Analyzing narratives from the Fed's beige books using machine learning and natural language processing techniques can help us answer questions. So the beige books are, there's 12 regions of the United States that the Fed has split the country up into. And what they do is they create a beige book for each region, which is based on surveys and speaking to people, what's actually going on in the economy in that region of the country. And then they put all of that together in one book that they take to the Federal Open Market Committee meeting where they make the interest rate decisions. This study introduces a new measure of analysis, the supply chain bottleneck sentiment, as opposed to quantitative stuff, which differs in two words. First, the list of words related to supply chain bottlenecks is generated through unsupervised machine learning and NLP rather than being predetermined. So you guys here know that unsupervised means this is a self-learning model, not one that has to have labeled data that's fed to it and basically trained to look for sentiment on the economy. By using unsupervised methods to identify semantically and syntactically similar words to supply chain bottlenecks, subjectivity is minimized. So they're looking at thousands of pages of documents for wording on supply chain disruption, which can be expressed many different ways. And so they use this AI to pick words that make sense for supply chain disruption. Second, the new index takes into account the sentiment of the supply chain text using deep learning techniques. So their AI is finding these references that it learns refers to supply chain, right? But those references need context. Why? Because there's negative references to supply chain disruption and positive references, meaning that supply chain disruption is easing. So using deep learning text analysis, the SCB sentiment index would classify one sentence as positive and another as negative. Text measures of supply chain bottlenecks that simply count the presence of supply chain related words may overestimate the actual level of disruption because the AI is picking up sentence references that may be positive, but it's treating them all as negative without deep learning. Deep learning allows it to distinguish positive from negative. It goes on to say, the first step of creating the measure involves finding sentences related to supply chain bottlenecks, and then they use a couple of tools, vector arithmetic, to create a representation for a specific theme of words. And if you look right here, you can see the graph that they use to develop the words that stick out related to supply chain. And the size difference, you've probably seen these before. The bigger words are referred to more often in the text that they're scanning, and the smaller words less often. That's what that means. Next, I estimate the sentiment of each sentence containing at least one of the supply chain bottlenecks by applying a BERT sentiment classifier to each sentence. So that's the deep learning model. And the specific model they use is called FinBERT, which is trained on financial data because that's what the Federal Reserve deals with, is financial data. FinBERT has been shown to improve the accuracy of sentiment classification for financial texts. Then they use this to analyze a long period of time to see how reliable it is. And they identified supply chain stresses in the 70s from the Arab oil embargo, increases in oil prices. And then they reappeared at the beginning of the millennium around 2000 with chip shortages, which happened again during COVID. And more recently, bottlenecks arose during the COVID-19 pandemic. The index suggests that the bottlenecks arising from the pandemic have been falling off since the later half of 2021. So supply chain disruptions, it next says, hit, but the effect is long lasting and it's unwinding right now. So they found a significant relationship between this AI model that they developed, the SCB sentiment, and inflation, which means that it works. So you can see that the Federal Reserve is now extensively using AI to make interest rate policy decisions based on specific things going on in the economy, and this particular thing was supply chain disruption. So that's pretty cool. It shows you that the impact of AI is now very widespread, and this is new. This model was only developed in 2022. This is not something that could have been done 5 years ago. So thanks so much for tuning in. Click the links, get my book and the free resources. And thank you to my subscribers. We'll see you next time.